All right, welcome. This is video number 6, and we are talking about multiplying polynomials. And the two basic ideas here in this chapter are distributing and foiling. And I don't know what kind of base you got in your Algebra 1 class, so I just want to take a minute. This will be a pretty quick video, but take a minute to go through and just cover some bases and make sure we're all on the same page. So both of these things are talking about multiplying, all right? And so when you're distributing, I'm assuming that you know that that means you have some term bumped directly up against a set of parentheses, and that you know that that implies multiplication. So I'm going to take this 3 and multiply it by everything inside. If you haven't seen this done before, or you were bad at it, and need to literally write 3 times the first thing in the parentheses, then you bring down the sign, then you're 3 again, then the next thing in the parentheses, and then you simply go ahead and multiply. So 3 times x is 3x, 3 times 4 is 12. These are non-like terms, which we talked about in the last chapter, and so your answer would be 3x plus 12. Okay, if you had something a little bit more complex, like 2x squared times the quantity 5x minus 4y. Now, you cannot add and subtract terms that are different from each other, but you can multiply and divide terms that are different from each other. So when we take this guy, we're going to take the 2x squared and multiply by both of those things. And again, I'm just going to write this out longhand for anybody that needs to see it. So the first term times the term out front times the first term in the parentheses, bring down the sign, and then the term out front again times the second term in the parentheses. And then I'm going to simplify. So, and remember, when you multiply an x times another x, that you're adding the exponents. If you don't see an exponent, it's a 1. So we're going to have 2 times 5 is 10, and then x squared times an x, you add the 2 and the 1, and you get x to the third power. Bring down the sign. We're going to multiply the coefficients. That's an 8. And then we have an x squared times a y. So that just gives you, quite literally, x squared y. These are not like terms because you don't have exactly the same combination of variables and exponents. So that problem is done. Okay, the last one I want to do here for distribution looks a little bit more complex. You have 3x squared y times 5x cubed y minus 6x squared y squared plus 2y cubed. And so we're going to take that number out front, the 3x squared y, the whole thing, and multiply by that term, the 5x cubed y, then multiply by the 6x squared y squared, then multiply by the 2y cubed. So one more time, this is the last time I'm going to do this. I'm going to write out every single step. So 3x squared y times 5x cubed y, bring down the negative. 3x squared y times 6x squared y squared, bring down the positive, 3x squared y times 2y cubed. And then we're going to go through and multiply. So we have 3 times 5 is 15. X squared times x cubed is, remember, you're adding the exponents, so x to the 5th. The y has a 1 on it right here, right? So a y to the first times another y to the first is a y to the second. Bring down the minus sign. 3 times 6 is 18. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. Y to the first times y to the second. Add the exponents is y to the 3rd. Bring down the plus sign. 3 times 2 is 6. X squared times no other x's gives you just an x squared. Y to the first times y to the 3rd gives you y to the 4th. And then if you kind of scan back over and look at these, you have an x to the 5th, x to the 4th, x to the 2nd. So just looking at the x's by themselves, you don't have any like terms. But if you did, maybe you had another x to the fifth somewhere, you'd also have to have a y to the second. Okay, so they have to be identical. So going back to our pen, I'm just going to box in my answer, which I'm going to ask you to do when you guys work out these problems as well. All right, next, on to foiling. I am going to call it foiling, but I'm not going to refer to it as in the, I don't even know what this is called, acronym? Foiling. So first, meaning you're multiplying the first terms together, then the inners, then the outers, outer, and then the last. I'm not going to do these in this order. I am going to actually, the process I'm going to do, you guys can distribute. You're good at it. So we're just going to double or sometimes triple distribute. And here's what I mean by that. My first problem, I'm going to take 3x minus 2 times x plus 4. So you're going to take this first term, ignore the minus 2 right here, completely ignore it, and just multiply the 3x like you're distributing it to the x plus 4. So if we do that, 3x times x is 3x squared, and 3x times 4 is, we bring down the plus sign, is a 12x. Okay, and then I'm going to take the negative 2, the sign goes with it, and multiply by those two things. So negative 2 times x is a negative 2x, and a negative 2 times a positive 4 is a negative 8. And you'll notice how I put the like terms underneath each other. Then I'm simply going to add down, right, when I combine like terms. So I have a 3x squared, 12x minus 2x is a plus 10x. There is no other term with the minus 8, so that becomes my answer. Okay? I'm not going to do another one of those. There's going to be some practice. I am going to do one that is a little crazy. It's more like triple distribution. So this one problem is going to look like this. 3x squared minus 5x plus 1, all in parentheses. Parentheses butted right up against themselves, which means multiplication. X squared minus 2x plus 6. So I'm going to take the first term and I'm going to multiply it by all of the terms in the second set of parentheses. Okay, so 3x squared times x squared is 3x to the fourth. 3x squared times negative 2x is a negative 6x to the third. Remember, this is x to the first. And then 3x squared times 6 is plus 18x squared. Now, if you're watching these notes, let me just say this might be the first place that maybe you're a little bit lost and you don't know what's happening. Stop. Look at your work. See if you can figure out where I'm getting these things from. Rewind. Listen again. Maybe anticipate the next one, which is going to be the negative 5x times all three of these terms over here. You can do that in advance and then hit play and see if you get the right stuff, right? So you can actually train yourself to do math better with these videos. If I tell you what you're going to do, you hit pause, then you do the work and then check your work. That's a really, really good way to make sure that you understand what is happening. All right, again, when I do these, I'm going to line up similar terms. So this 5x, the negative 5x here, has an x to the first power. It's getting multiplied by an x squared. So that's going to be a minus 5x cubed. And then negative 5x times 2x, negative 2x is a positive 10x squared. And then negative 5x times positive 6 is a minus 30x. Right? Now I'm going to take the 1 and multiply the 1 by all three terms in the next set of parentheses. Again, lining up based on the exponential value where your terms are going to go. So 1 times x squared is x squared. 1 times negative 2x is negative 2x. And 1 times 6 is plus 6. And then I'm going to draw a line underneath and add down. Okay, so I get a 3x to the fourth minus 11x cubed. 18 plus 10 is 28, plus another 1 is 29, right? Because this has a 1 in front of it. Negative 30 minus 2 is negative 32x plus 6. And that whole entire thing would be your answer. Okay, so you're going to see a combination of these. Don't forget in the bottom of your notes to put 2.0 down there. All right, and you're going to submit your notes. And then there's going to be a varsity assignment. Due. Okay? All right. Toodaloo. Okay, so this is an addition to 2.0. I needed to remind you of a couple of things that I left off. So they're two very short things. If you have something that looks like this, 2x minus 7, and that quantity is squared, what that really means is that there are this many of these, right? So we need to write this as 2x minus 7 times another 2x minus 7, and then make sure that you're foiling these. Don't just square each of the terms in the parentheses. Here's why. If you were to do that, if you just square each term, and this is what you do not want to do. I just want to show you why they're not equivalent. Okay, 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Negative 7 times negative 7 is a positive 49, and that would be your answer, right? Well, if you actually FOIL, you get a 4x squared minus 14x minus another 14x plus 49. And then if you add all those terms together, you get 4x squared minus 28x plus 49. And this is the correct answer, not this. You did not have that minus 28 in there. It is the most common boo-boo my kids make all the way through pre-calculus. So remember, whatever the exponent is, write the base that many times and then do the multiplication, right? I mean, the same thing. If you had 3 to the fourth power, that means that there's this many of these. It would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, right? It's not 3 times 4. All right, so enough of that. And then the other thing that I want to just say is this gets a lot of kids in varsity. They will give you a question that looks like this. 3x minus 2 minus 4x minus 12. You do not FOIL this, right? And why do you not FOIL? You do not FOIL because of this minus sign in the middle. This becomes an addition and subtraction problem, right? There's a negative in here, and you would distribute that negative. Here you can just drop your parentheses off. So 3x minus 2 minus 4x plus 12, and then combine like terms. Okay, so this would be a negative x plus 10 versus, let me show you, if you had, instead of the problem you have up above, 3x minus 2, no minus in the middle, 4x minus 12. This one is a FOIL problem, right? Because your parentheses are bumped directly up against each other right here, and there's no sign in the middle. That means it's an implied multiplication sign. So be very careful if you see that in varsity. I know that there are some problems where they do this to you. X plus 3 quantity squared minus 2x plus 5 quantity squared. So you've got to do both things I just talked about. This is x plus 3 times x plus 3. You'd have to FOIL this. I would bring this minus down and then almost think about this in a whole nother set of parentheses or brackets. You want to do the 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 5, then you need to distribute this negative here, right? So let me just real quick work through this. Again, good idea to pause it, you do the work, and then compare it to my answer. So I'm going to real quick just multiply this out here without doing all the steps. I'd get x squared plus 6x plus 9 minus 4x squared. I have a plus 10x and a plus 10x is plus 20x plus 25. And then I have to distribute that negative into here. So I would now have x squared plus 6x plus 9 minus 4x squared minus 20x minus 25. And then I'd combine like terms and have an x squared minus 4x squared, so minus 3x squared. 6x minus 20x is a minus 14x. And then plus 9 and a minus 25 is a negative 16. And that would be your answer to that thing. Okay, so when you see these exponents, make sure you're writing it twice and foiling. If you see a sign in the middle, make sure you're not foiling these two things together. Okay, so that's just an add-on for the 2.0B varsity assignment that you're going to have in a day or two. Okay, toodaloo.